Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AAS channel, and we are living in some unusual times here today. So we're going to start doing a different set of video series. This one is going to be about taking your astronomy course online in a hurry, what matters and what to do, both from a social aspect and from a pragmatic aspect. And I'm going to be duetting with various peoples or triplets, as the case may be. And today we are going to have Chris Impey, who has a whole lot of experience in teaching and teaching online. So Chris, take it away for a little bit.
Sure, and so it's good to talk to you, Frank, about this, and we hope this is the first of a series of these. We're going to stay at the 30,000 foot level, I think, for the first one. So obviously around the country, you know, everyone's food dishes moved massively with the coronavirus and the mandate usually to go online on very short notice. And remember, whatever, you know, the obvious comment is whatever pain you feel as an instructor, multiply that by the size of your class for how much pain students are feeling. Because we think all the millennials, they're so tech savvy and they're so into technology. Well, yes and no. I mean, they know how to do what they know how to do, social media, etc. But once you put them in a learning management system, they're a babe in the woods, just like instructors. So yeah, we're going to have some just broad comments in this first session about online, you know, making no assumption that any of you have taught online before, or maybe you have, but it was in the past and you're rusty, or maybe you're just intimidated by the amount of work required to just take what you have and put it into completely new formats and media.
Yeah. So Chris, have you been teaching online or?
So I've taught, you know, a few times over the last 5 to 7 years online. I actually, the sweet spot for me, and maybe you teach huge online, I know, I kind of like flip classes. So I was doing flipping classes for a long time because, you know, why stand there and lecture when you could use your class time for hands-on and active learning? So for those of you watching or listening who've done flip classes, you're sort of halfway there. So I've done a lot of flip, and then it's not the same as formal education, but I've taught huge MOOCs with tens or hundreds of thousands of people in them, and some of the elements of maintaining engagement and keeping your audience with you are common between, say, a MOOC for informal learners and a classroom experience. What about you, Frank? Talk about because you've got huge online numbers at ASU.
Yeah, so people probably know me from the AAS YouTube channel. I talk about the journals a lot. But I do have another life, and I have several lives. But one of them is teaching, and I've been teaching online at Arizona State University for about 10 years now. I started off doing hybrid courses, and then that quickly shifted into online. And so in the past 10 years, I've sort of been on the bleeding edge of what ASU does in online. So for a little while, when ASU was experimenting with MOOCs on the edX platform, I was getting courses with about 15,000 online learners in it in a shot. So for a little while, it was, you know, the largest college credit eligible course in the world. Mm-hmm. So that experiment came and went, and currently the course that I teach online is Introduction to Solar Systems. So I do planets and that kind of stuff. And currently that course is populated by a whole lot of Starbucks folks, a whole lot of Uber folks, a whole lot of military personnel and others. And so these are people who are not at ASU, but are trying to gain admission into the Arizona system. And so we call it the Earned Admissions Program. Mm-hmm. And so it's a lot of people who are in business and have real jobs and are working to improve their position. So I enjoy online teaching. I think it's wonderful. I think it offers a lot of venues and possibilities that you just can't necessarily easily do in an in-person course. So that's a little bit about my street cred on teaching online. And Chris, you have some ebooks coming out, or you have one out, and I think you have another one.
Yeah. So we've had the Institute of Physics, which partners with the American Astronomical Society on research journals, has and they've had a series of branded ebooks and various astrophysical topics. They decided to have an education series, very sensibly. And Matthew Wenger and Sandlin Buxner and I are co-editing the first 2 volumes in that series. The first one on pedagogy, volume 1 in this education series of ebooks, which can be printed. There are printable and PDF versions and so on. That came out a couple of months ago. The one that's more germane to what we're talking about, the one on online learning, is really due out very soon. American Astronomical Society is part of the portal that you will all see at some point, and if you read your AAS newsletter, you'll see links to the space where a Google Doc is being built and links are being built. We have permission, even ahead of publication, to put at least one major article on online resources, make it available for the community. So you should be seeing that soon.
Cool. In fact, I was going to be doing, it's in the can, a series on ebooks, which would features your books. But life events sort of took over here, and so we're in a different mode here. So the ebooks one's going to get pushed off a little bit as we do some of this. So what we want to talk about for the next several minutes or so are the social aspects, very important social aspects, and some of the pragmatic aspects of taking the course online. So, Chris, what in your view, what is the most important social aspect of teaching online?
It's really simple. It's just maintaining student engagement through a quarter or semester. You're in a disembodied environment. When you teach face to face, you walk into the room, you can gauge the energy in the room, the vibe, the feedback, the buzz, whatever, the apathy with people on their phones. It's immediate. Online, it's not so easy to gauge, and it's really easy to lose kids online, for them to drift away and most likely fail your course. So maintaining student engagement, there's no one answer to that, but that as just a core issue is, I think, the most important thing.
Yeah, I'm going to second that. It's communication, communication, communication. And I can just give you examples of what I do in my courses. And in most courses, in most CMSs, LMSs, you're going to have a discussion board. And I personally get on that discussion board every day, every few hours, but that's just me. Sort of guarantee students an answer to their question within 24 hours. And really establishing that presence in the discussion boards, that you are active, alive, that you care about the course, you care about them. It's so important. Typically, I will send 2 or 3 global class emails, just updating them when, okay, this assignment is due, this one's coming up. So engaging on the discussion board, engaging in emails, and then there will always be, particulars of a given student, their particular situations, and then just responding promptly to that. And you will find that, particularly, I think, more so I found in an online environment, that students really appreciate it when you engage, when you communicate it at that level.
Right. And I guess it goes without saying that, you can mix the methods even with that. I mean, email is still, for academics, it's how academics communicate with each other. As we know, kids, millennials, have sort of drifted away from email. In fact, it's usually only because they're at a university that they feel like they have to do much email at all. And when they email you, it's just you. So other people who might have the same concern or issue don't get to see it. So your point about the discussion board is, they're almost always, everyone who makes a comment, a pertinent post or question is speaking for another set of kids who thought, oh yeah, I wondered that too, or yeah, that's what I feel, or so that's valuable. And I would add, if you can, again, we have to acknowledge that, get rid of one of the tropes of this field, which is that it's easier to teach online, because you don't have to go into the class. Well, your time commitment is substantial. So,
right. Yeah.
But it's also worth mixing in occasional synchronous, a live session. And the technologies for doing that, can scale to even large numbers. And there's some extra little juice that happens when, you're live and online with your students. Now you're not going to hit all their schedules, so that is not good enough as a single mode of communication. But I think it helps to have an occasional online session, especially a live session, especially when exams are approaching or the anxiety levels rising on grades and so on. That then you can add that into the mix too.
Yeah, I do. Three. I call it office hours for 10,000. Although there's not 10,000 anymore. So it's office hours for hundreds. But I do live Zoom sessions, and I will answer questions, take chat stuff. I'll fill an entire hour just engaging with students. Sometimes presenting new material that is not necessarily in the course. I mean, there's lots of options there. So, what do you think are some of the other important social aspects of teaching online?
Well, another one is, referencing the fact that we're all aware that learner-centered engagement or learner-centered teaching is the model that works best it works best for learning. I mean, teaching and learning are not the same thing, as we know. And the question immediately arises, especially for those who haven't taught online, was, well, okay, I know what it means when I have a lab and I'm there, or I have a classroom break into small groups and I can wander around and mediate discussions, but can you do that online? I mean, can you have, peer learning and active learning by students online? And yes, you can, because, the tools are there in all the systems that most major universities use for online to have, active discussion, or to have students collaborating on a project or a document or a shared workspace. VoiceThread is an example, but there are others where you can use sort of multimedia and multimodal forms of students posting presentations or video clips or sound clips and then commenting on each other's work. And so you just need to look in your situation, in your university, and the tools you have available, what methods are the easiest to learn and most readily available to juice up your class with some, peer learning and some student engagement with each other. So they don't feel like solitons where they're all on their own in their dorm room or wherever, and then there's you, and that's it.
Absolutely. Let's see, what are some of the things I do? So I do that peer, and I often will combine that with non-digital online stuff. So I have them get out and do analog experiments.
Wow.
So we'll typically do 3. The first one, which I give them all quarter or semester to do, which is just to get out and observe the night sky.
Right.
Do something, observe something,
right.
observe the moon, write about it. And they're encouraged through a variety of modalities to collaborate with each other, to do group projects. They can do that on Slack or whatever technology they wish to do. The second one I have them do is measure the diameter of the sun with a pinhole camera. So they have to build a camera and they have to learn how to work it and go through that. And that opens up a lot of eyes.
And we have the unfair advantage where we have the sun like 330 days a year.
I do get people who are in places that are not quite as sunny as Arizona, and so I invite them to innovate, right? Do a light bulb, do a street light, something, do a candle flame. And then the third one I have them do is a little bit messy, but they seem to enjoy it a lot, is impact craters. So we have them make a regolith and throw various objects at them, and then measure the width and the diameter of the crater. And there's supposed to be a rule of thumb for the ratio of those two. And so what do they get in? Why might it be different than what comes in from outer space? So just things along those lines where you can get them out and doing something physical, and then having them collaborate with each other, I have found to be a great learning experience for the students.
And there's a sort of a variation on this, which sort of tends into citizen science, where they could be going out and gathering data that can be brought back into the virtual space and actually produce something like crowdsourcing. You actually produce the sum of the parts is really quite impressive and tells you something interesting.
Yeah, Zooniverse, lots of people know that one, and lots of things to do, participate in citizen science. Ooh, I like that idea. Give me an idea for the next one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess I would say that it's really important when you go online to be organized about what you're doing. There's a premium on being organized and being clear about your organization to the students. That's probably got a bit more of an accent to it when you're online than as opposed to in person. Because in person,
Right.
budges out a little bit, less so online. So do try and be a little bit more organized.
That leads me to another thought that you again there are differences and difficulties with being online. I mean, in the classroom, your feedback on what's going on is just as instant as looking at their faces, right?
Right.
And so, but there's some of the tools that we use in a face-to-face classroom for feedback and like polling and so on. That's a good thing to do online too, because they can participate in an experiment where they're asked questions. I mean, it could be pedagogical in terms of a misconception that you're drilling down on it, but it might just be societal things. You know, do you think we should have private space travel? Would you go to the moon? How much would you pay for that? You know, just
Yeah.
polling on some
Yeah.
topic of societal interest. And they'll have their opinion, and they kind of generally get a kick out of seeing what the whole class thinks. And so polling generally is another little tool available. And again, it's usually built in, it's usually in the CMS. Well, you were saying that be organized. I guess the other piece of a message is the course management system is sort of your friend. I mean, you may, if you're facing going online in a hurry, not having been there, I mean, you probably used the CMS, but maybe not very much or just the bare bones of it. And it feels intimidating to go up some learning curve to use more of the capabilities of it. But actually, I would recommend everyone just sort of flip your thinking on that. Recognize that the power of the good CMSs is such that you can do really interesting and useful things and important things, because you've got a ton of analytics in there. You've got data on how students are doing, which allows you to flag students that may be drifting away that you can check in on individually and just before they just drop the class. Because you know, in a face-to-face class, unless there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students, you often see, you know, the people who are there in the first few weeks who then just start coming erratically, and then they don't appear, or their work is coming late, or they turn up late. It's harder to get those social cues online, but you have tools. They're slightly big brother-ish because, you know, they sort of drill into how students are engaging with the content in a grainy way, but they're very useful for an instructor.
Yeah, you can do some good intervention
Mm-hmm.
if you're finding a student is for whatever reason not keeping up.
And there's it's reminding me, there's research, I'm sure you know it too. There's research, I forget out of where, that shows that, you know, beyond science, just in general on campuses dealing with online, if you, when you have an intervention or a check-in with students in the first few weeks that are, you know, they either don't turn in the first assignment, or they do really poorly or worse than you would expect given their academics, you know, it doesn't take very much check-in and just a little text or email. Hey, how are you doing? You know, do you need can we talk about that assignment, or was that just, and it can make a huge difference. It's a retention issue that it doesn't take a huge amount of time. And there's a lot of students that are just in the middle of the curve that are just going to chunk through fine, and maybe they don't need extra help. But the ones that do, you can catch them online. They're not anonymous. It's not so disembodied that you can't make that connection.
Absolutely. Okay, we've talked about some of the social aspects. There's also, you know, the pragmatic aspects of, particularly if you're trying to you've never done it and you're trying to get your astronomy course online quickly and efficiently. What do you think are some of the key pragmatic aspects of taking your teaching online?
Well, there's you know, if we imagine the core of a class, as in most situations in a very traditional way, is lectures. You know, the tools are all there. You know, you can make video lectures from Zoom or Panopto. Every major university has a way of doing that. And those technologies are often good enough to be keyed to PowerPoint slides and you know, give students some navigation tools when they're in the material. But you always have to remember, as we do even when we're face-to-face teaching, that the attention span, you know, this is partly incubated by YouTube, that the median attention span is 5 or 6 minutes on a video, you know. So, okay, you're going to be having more than that length of talking about star formation or galaxies or whatever, but you got to chunk it up. I mean, make your main points,
Yeah.
give them bottom lines, give them take-home messages, pause, modulate the presentation so you go off and show a nice animation or video, something that's a little gentler. Because if you just pound through 40 or 50 minutes of video lecture, no, it's terrible. Well, we know we couldn't watch each other for that long. As much as I like you,
Yeah.
as much as you might like me, we couldn't watch an hour of each other talking.
No, probably not. Yeah, so just an example. So in my planetary course, it's actually chunked out into 75 5 to 7 minute videos.
Mm-hmm.
Chunk it out like that, it really makes you stay on topic, right? Sometimes when you're in person, you can wander off on tangents fairly easily, because we all know the topic pretty well. But for a learner, it really helps them to stay really focused on that 5 minutes and get the points across. So,
Right.
yeah.
So there's that, and then some of the evaluation materials are going to be similar. So it's not so scary in the sense that it's a completely alien beast to teach online. I mean, the components of your class can be similar. They shouldn't, and identical. That there's a pejorative word, I'm sure for that, shovelware, when you take
Yep.
the material for one medium or one mode of presentation like online lecturing and just shovel it into a digital package and expect it to work just as well or be just as
Right.
so you have to you have to be appropriate to the medium or the technology itself. And I'm sure if you haven't done it before, on your campus there are people who've done it before. So find your guru. Maybe you're in a small department and it's tricky because you're it. Well, then probably in your college there are people. There's a chemistry or biology professor who's done online, and they pioneers, the people who are first adopters of these technologies are really happy when they have someone who's coming on board who's a little intimidated and they can share their knowledge with.
Absolutely.
And also most universities, yours and mine, I'm sure, the central people supporting that activity, that's their job. They love it, and they're willing to help. Now, of course, the asterisk on that is that some of those units are kind of swamped right now because they're facing huge volumes of students and huge volumes of instructors pivoting to online in a hurry. So you may have to be a little patient with those people that in those support units, but they are absolutely there for you. I mean, you can guarantee that.
Right. And I imagine over the next couple of days, next couple of weeks, we're going to be spinning up a large nationwide, if not international, community on helping people get online and do it well.
Right.
Get on there. So we'll touch back on that in a few. Since we don't want to talk to each other for 45 minutes, well, I think it's lovely. What do you think are your top 3 takeaway messages for getting your course online in a hurry, and what matters and what to do? So give me your top 3 takeaways.
I guess, and I'm not necessarily in any order, but the top 3 would include find a guru, find someone you can get expert advice from who's done it before, so you just don't feel like you're reinventing a wheel with no help. The second is what we had at our core of our message, which is put most of your thought into how you engage with your students. Just sit and think really hard about how to do that. And the last one actually is, it's kind of obvious, you should have fun with this. It's not, I mean, this can all seem like scary, threatening, a lot of, I didn't want to do this. They moved my food dish, not just a few feet, but like a mile. But it's actually, I mean, the technologies are cool. I mean, we're all techies at heart, and these are cool technologies and they have amazing possibilities. So you could just sort of have fun with it too.
Yeah, and you may find yourself after this experience being an online convert because you find advantages to it. Yeah, so my top 3, I'm going to echo a little bit of that, but I'm going to really sort of hammer on one. It's communication, communication. Engage with your students, and it will pay you back enormously for the effort you put in, the fun effort you put in. So. That's great. So I think that'll do on this one. I think what the SS would like to do, and I'm game to do it, and Chris and some of his colleagues at University of Arizona, and certainly some folks at Arizona State and around the nation, actually. We would like to put together a sequence of videos on specific topics. So maybe we could put together a session on how you use learner analytics, or what type of videos work well. You know, your iPhone up here doesn't cut the cake. But there are techniques, and Chris has written articles on this. So I think we're going to do a series of videos. So I'm going to start shifting some of the focus of the AAS channels a little bit away from the journals for a little bit, and we'll start talking about teaching online. That's part of the game. And it's possible that, you know, picking up the suggestion that Chris, you mentioned earlier, maybe we'll do like a live help session. So those of us who have been online for a while, we can get online and sort of do it in the teaching mode for people getting online.
Yeah. Okay, well, this has been fun. And I also remind people, we let in with this, but the AAS they've already got, you know, twin pages, one of which is curated and not editable, and one of which is a Google Doc that is editable, so people in the community can add their resources and links and so on. So, you know, the crowdsourcing of help for instructors nationwide the AAS is nicely leading on this, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I mentioned this to some other folks in some other societies, and they were,
yes,
we gotta get our society going. Oh, the AAS is beating us. So yeah, it's been fun. Cool, Chris, I want to thank you so much for your time this afternoon. And everyone out there, we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Bye.